It's frightening to think that in the Ireland of today, 10% of our population are experiencing food poverty. The Vincentian Partnership for Social Justice, in a study recently, acknowledged that after housing and childcare costs, one of the biggest challenges facing the family budget was the challenge of providing food. And we know, Tánaiste, that 1 in 5 children in Ireland go to bed hungry, and 1 in 6 children go to school hungry without having had their breakfast. Have you a plan to address that particular challenge?
Thank you very much. Tánaiste.
Well, the Department of Social Protection's primary role is to provide income supports to sustain an adequate standard of living and to prevent poverty. It's for this reason that the Government has protected primary weekly rates of welfare since it came into office, notwithstanding the economic difficulties. In 2013, welfare payments and other social transfers, excluding pensions, reduced the at-risk of poverty rate from 38.4% to 15.2%, thereby lifting almost a quarter of the population out of relative income poverty. Ireland is among the best performing EU member states in this regard. The School Meals Programme provides funding towards the provision of food services to some 1,600 schools and organisations, and it benefits over 200,000 children. 39 million has been provided for the scheme in 2015, and that's up 2 million over that provided the previous year. A new European initiative, the Fund for European Aid to the Most Deprived, FEED, now supports the provision of food and basic consumer products to people to be considered most at risk. A total of almost 27 million funding is available over the period to 2020, of which 65% is for food, and I expect the programme to be operational during the third quarter of this year. Finally, under its Social Inclusion Initiative funding schemes, the Department supports Healthy Food for All, a national charitable organisation which works to increase access to and availability of affordable, healthy food by people or by groups of people who are on a low income.
Thank you very much. Deputy Ó Fearghaíl.
Can I ask you, Tánaiste, if you'd accept that food poverty has a particularly negative effect on children? It affects their health, obviously, it affects their educational attainment, their behaviour in school and so on. Would you further accept that while, and I welcome the fact that you have increased the budget for the school meals programme in the current year, and that needs to be continued, but would you accept that there perhaps needs to be a restructuring of the school meals programme? At present, as I understand it, about 14% of the funding is going towards breakfast clubs, with the balance of the funding being spent on lunches. But I think studies have indicated quite clearly that the best outcomes for children come from having a substantial a substantial breakfast made available to them at the start of the day. And that's one of the things that's not happening because of the manner in which the school meals programme is organised. So would you agree with me that there needs to be an urgent restructuring of the system?
Well, the Department spends €39 million a year on the school meals programme, and I have been a very strong supporter of it, in conjunction as well with the Healthy Food for All initiative, because part of that is all of us, including children in school and their parents, learning about healthy food and how to eat healthily, because one of the issues in relation to food is that sometimes quite a lot of money can be spent, but actually the food might not be as nutritious as it could be. And so I'm a really strong supporter of the breakfast clubs. But here, I have to say, Deputy, and I welcome your remarks, a lot depends on the school. The breakfast clubs and the school meals programme are available to all schools which are characterised, whether in urban or in rural areas, as DEIS schools. Now, not all of the schools, interestingly enough, apply, and over the last couple of years we have been in constant contact with the different schools to advertise to them, the fact that this is available. The other issue then is in relation to the number of children. This year we increased, for example, child benefit by €5 to €135 a month, and if a family were on social welfare, they would also get almost €30 a week per child. So in other words, on a weekly basis, there's an effect for a family who are relying on a social welfare income. There's about €65 a week per child, not counting other payments that the family may receive. But I agree with you, and I would like to see more schools availing of the breakfast clubs. But that is a choice for the schools. Not all schools open, for instance, early in the morning. I've been talking to my colleague, the Minister for Education, because to get the breakfast club, the school often has to facilitate being open, say, a half an hour earlier. Now, we also, through different programmes, employ people to assist with the school meals programmes, and I have to say they do a fantastic job. But I would be delighted if more schools and more school principals and the boards of management of the school were to avail. I think the lunches that are provided, they're quite good, but if a child has left the house without eating properly, really in terms of energy, if their first meal is somewhat later. But again, just let me say, and I have visited a lot of school programmes around, school meals programmes around the country. Principals are enormously sensitive to identifying children who might have left their home without getting a proper breakfast.
Deputy.
And I chair the board of management of a school which isn't DEIS but provides a lunch, or provides a breakfast service to the children. But you're missing my point, I think, Tánaiste. That the point is this, that the meals programme is so structured as to incentivise schools to provide the lunch, because it's for the lunch that a greater subsidy is available. There needs to be some reconfiguration of the system to incentivise the schools to provide the breakfast, because at the end of the day it is the provision of the breakfast that is of greatest benefit to the individual children, ultimately to the school and to the operation of the school. So I would plead with you to look critically at that, to look at what's happening across the country and to encourage principals and boards of management to make the transition from lunch to breakfast, and to ensure that the system is so organised as to make it expedient for them to provide the breakfast.
Tánaiste, final reply.
Certainly happy to look at that, but in a lot of cases, not every child in the school will particularly want or need a breakfast, because they will have, for the most part, eaten a good, nourishing breakfast at home with their family. And therefore the emphasis on lunch is because by lunchtime, and the children still have another couple of hours in school, they do need food. So perhaps the argument we should agree on is that perhaps we should move to both being providable in school where appropriate, because not every child may require the breakfast, and it does vary, but that option particularly should be there for children who may particularly need it, and then for other children by choice who may want to join it. And I've seen principals who've done this and done it extremely well, but it does require that if, say, the school starting time is 9 o'clock, that they're able to be in the school premises and to start the breakfast sometime around 8:30. But also, the other point about the breakfast is it's a very nice social time for the children, sitting down, getting their breakfast and having the chat with the friends before the start of the school day. So I am an extremely strong advocate and for the breakfast clubs, but you know, not all boards of management are in agreement, but certainly I'd like to move to a situation where we do both. It's not an either-or, and certainly we've prioritised funding in a tight funding situation for the school meals programmes, and I anticipate being able to improve what's on offer, but it does require the permission of the board and of the principal.